You're now listening to All Hog Sports, covering all Arkansas Razorback sports, such as football, basketball, baseball, and much more. Now, here's your host for today's show, Sam Stimson.
The first SEC game of the year is here this Saturday, September 10th at 11 a.m. on ESPN, when the unranked South Carolina Gamecocks come to Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium. Now hopping straight into Arkansas. Ranked number 16 in the AP poll. A large part of that ranking is due to the successful offense led by no other than himself, KJ Jefferson. KJ against Cincinnati was 18 out of 26 for 223 yards, passing with 3 touchdowns. Arkansas's offense as a whole had 447 yards. Great day on the field there with 31 points. I thought overall KJ against Cincinnati, I got into it more in depth on the Cincinnati recap on Tuesday, but he had some very small mistakes, just kind of stuff that happens when, it's the first game of the season, still kind of new to everything, getting used to the new receivers, no Traylon Burks, couple underthrows, but besides that, KJ Jefferson looked the part. And like I said, when Arkansas needs to score points, when Arkansas needs to move the ball downfield, a lot of times in those situations, KJ Jefferson is able to do it. He's able to move the ball down the field and get things going on offense. He's a go-getter, and he makes this Arkansas offense run as effective as it does with his reads on RPOs and such, and will be huge reasoning in this game versus South Carolina. South Carolina's secondary has a lot of returning starters from last season. I'll get into that in a little bit. But KJ getting things through the air. Now the guys you'll be seeing him throw the ball to, starting off with tight end Trey Knox, former wide receiver for the program, put on about 30 pounds, mostly muscle in the offseason. 6 catches, 75 yards against Cincinnati with 2 touchdowns. He looks the part, blocking has been there. Additionally, you've got some transfers on the end. Wide receiver Matt Landers from Toledo, 3 catches for 43 yards. Jaden Hazelwood, very fast receiver, very talented. By the end of the season, you'll be seeing him put up 70-plus yards per game. Easily, 3 catches, 92 yards with 1 touchdown against Cincinnati. You also have guys like Warren Thompson, Ketron Jackson see the field. Main thing for the Arkansas receiving units, downfield blocking, run good routes, and just try to take Cincinnati's corners and stuff right off the beat. I would see Arkansas look at some downfield throws, as we didn't see really much against Cincinnati. I think that was a very common thing last year because of Traylon Burks. Arkansas, chucking the ball downfield very far. I don't know if we'll see too much of it against Cincinnati, but I think overall Arkansas is going to move the ball a lot on the ground more than anything. There's so many options Arkansas has on the field here. Number 5, Rocket Sanders, 20 carries last game, 5.9 average yards per rush, 117 yards. KJ Jefferson himself, 18 carries for 62 yards. AJ Green had 3 rushes with an average of 6 yards per carry. Rashad Dumian had 2 carries, average of 8 yards, and Dominique Johnson did not play last game. Sam Pittman did say, though, it's kind of up to DJ if he's going to play or not. He was out of the green jersey in practice this week, so that's a good sign there. But with Arkansas having AJ Green, Rashad, KJ Rocket, there's no reason why Arkansas is not going to run the ball 35, 40 times. We saw it last season where over 2/3 of Arkansas's play calling was on the ground, and they were the number 1 team in rushing yards in the Power 5. I would expect that to keep on going. I mean, Arkansas only lost Traylon Smith, returned a lot of the guys back this season, and then Rashad was a great pickup, the true freshman from Georgia. Additionally, expect some plays in the offense with Malik Hornsby. He got reps at wide receiver during spring and fall ball. We saw a couple of them where Arkansas lined up backup quarterback as a wide receiver, ran some trick plays. Some of them worked out. Malik did end up getting a rush in this game, but expect some options with him. You know how Browse gets creative with the offense. I'm not too worried about the offensive line, though. All those starters, very solid guys, perform well against Cincinnati, a good defensive line there. Arkansas's offensive line gives them a lot of protection in the run game and such. Main thing, like I say, Arkansas offense keeping the run pass option, KJ Jefferson getting the reads right, and Arkansas will be fine, and he did that last season. He did it versus Cincinnati. I have no reason to believe that KJ won't do that again. Now, the South Carolina defense that this Arkansas offense will be faced up against allowed 14 points to Georgia State, 311 allowed yards, 200 of those on the ground, and only 111 those in the past. Like I said, that South Carolina secondary is where they strive. Georgia State had 5.0 yards per carry. Their leading running back had 5.8 yards per carry. They let up some long 50-plus yard runs. Overall, their rush defense really wasn't too bad outside of those long runs that they ended up letting go by. Georgia State is one of the better teams within the Sun Belt Conference. At one point, they did lead in this game versus South Carolina. Some special team stuff that I'll talk about that later really hurt them. Their quarterback, though, 7 completions out of 29 attempts. He did not look great at all. 111 yards, 3.8 yards per attempt. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Now, the way that South Carolina's on defense is a 3-3-5. At defensive end, you got Jordan Burke Jr. He had 5 total tackles against Georgia State, 3 solo tackles, and a half of a sack. Tyree Johnson had 1 total tackle. These guys are better in pass rush, getting around the edges. Now, for defensive tackle, your starters are going to be Zach Pickens and Alex Huntley had a total tackle. Both of those 2 guys getting the majority of reps in this 3-man defensive line front. But total for South Carolina, also Tonka Hemingway, MJ Webb, and then TJ Sandway. Those 5 guys make up a defensive line front that's not that bad. Against Georgia State, obviously the stats stat, but I think those long runs kind of fall on the linebackers and the safeties and such to, the yards per rush number being a little bit more inflated. Overall, though, they executed a lot of their assignments, chopping through the offensive line, getting some pressure. But I think Arkansas's offensive line is going to be a much different challenge than this Georgia State team. I like Arkansas's chances in this up-front battle. Starting at middle linebacker for South Carolina, Mohamed Kaba. He was an all-freshman SEC pick, but last season was not on any of the teams. He's a true middle linebacker that had productive season last year. He's a really talented athlete. He gets the majority of the snaps here. 4 total tackles versus Georgia State, 3 solo tackles. Behind him was Stone Blanton, a true freshman. And then Sherd Green is actually listed as the backup, but didn't see any playing time against Georgia State. And Shane Beamer did say that he is healthy and ready to go for this next game. Didn't really talk much about why he was out the previous game. But a middle linebacker, Kaba, Blanton, and Green, you can expect those 3 guys getting snaps at this very important position when you're looking at the middle linebacker to stop this Arkansas running attack. And you really want a powerful guy there all game. And they'll have guys rotating too, just because they're going to take a lot of hits based off Arkansas probably running 30, 40. I mean, we could even see 50. I mean, you know how this playbook operates. The weak side linebackers, Brad Johnson, 5 solo tackles, and then Debo Williams had 5 total tackles too, and a QB hurry. When you look at the linebackers and such against a read offense, kind of the secondary too, they can make mistakes and pick up on that wrong option. And with Arkansas's offense being so RPO-based, definitely have to take advantage of that when you're playing a Cincinnati defense that brings a lot of returning starters to the line. Looking at the secondary for South Carolina, at nickelback, you'll see time from Cam Smith and David Sparling. Cam Smith also switching over to corner here. Marcellus Dial, one of their best corners, very, very active playing on ball. 3 pass breakups, an interception. Couple plays, though, where he was beat deep, made some bad penalties. Also at corner, Darius Rush, Kajon Banks. You'll see those 3 corners, and then Cam Smith playing a lot. Strong safety, R.J. Roderick, he actually left the game versus South Carolina in the an arm injury in the first quarter, and then Nick Almanari, he backup, ended up getting 3 tackles. Free safety, though, they saw the debut of Devontae Reed, All-MAC transfer, second team from Central Michigan, and then DQ Smith. Like I said, those secondary guys, they play very well on coverage and then also making tackles. Main thing for Arkansas here is they have to continue to shine with the RPO and run the football. Arkansas just needs to take the ball and hand it off 30, 40, 50 times. And I think the offense can kind of take care of itself and operate from there forward. I think South Carolina's offense versus Arkansas's defense, though, brings up a really interesting perspective coming up.
Versus.
The South Carolina Gamecocks. And with that offense, a lot of people know the name Spencer Rattler. A freshman All-American out of Oklahoma his first year. Second year, lost the starting position to Caleb Williams. But the thing is, the glimpses we saw his freshman year still show that he has a lot of talent and could be something very well in the future. Now, he lost the job to Caleb Williams, a very talented quarterback. And there's a fair share of quarterbacks in the nation, I would have said last year, that would have lost their job to Caleb Williams. And that number is very, very high. To beat out Caleb Williams in preseason camp, was impressive. But what Rattler brings is a strong arm. He's been able to throw accurate downfield and a rapid and good release. Just watching him throw the ball just rolls off the fingers very well. Fast, an accurate passer as well. Even last season, 70% above completion percentage, even though he ended up losing his starting position. But some things that Arkansas can capitalize on is his decision-making at times, throwing into tight windows. We saw it against Georgia State 2 times. He has a lot of these very talented traits and used them his freshman year, and now he's struggling to pick back up on those. Another thing that Rattler does a lot is he's quick to flee from the pocket. Key here, Arkansas getting pressure on the defensive line. We saw Arkansas do that against Cincinnati quarterback Ben Bryant, and was largely successful. Now, against Georgia State, Rattler had a very low QBR of 28.6. I'm not a huge fan of the statistic, but I do think it does show how well a quarterback played overall. 23 out of 37 with 227 yards, 6.1 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions in this game. When watching Rattler in this game, main thing here, just he threw into those tight pockets, forcing those interceptions. Rattler really didn't push the ball downfield, and there was a lot of reads that I thought he missed on. Now, the receivers that he'll be throwing to, wide receiver Antwan Wells Jr., arguably the best wide receiver for South Carolina, 7 catches for 55 yards. Rattler complimented him this week on his strong hands, and he's a consistent guy who can fight through contact. 6'1", 207, expect to see a lot of him. Wide receiver Jale Brooks as well, 6'2", 4 catches for a team-leading 88 yards against Georgia State. Senior, and he's really good in open space, brings a lot of experience back to the wide receiver core. Wide receiver Xavier Leggett was praised by Spencer Rattler, but he really didn't see much action against a Georgia State, and wide receiver Josh Vann as well. Looking here at tight ends, Austin Stogner, the Oklahoma transfer, played with Rattler his freshman season, some bit last season, and that chemistry has built up. 1 catch for 7 yards, but they will find ways to get Austin involved in this offense. A very talented tight end sought out of the transfer portal last season. And then additionally, tight end Jaheim Bell, 3 catches for 47 yards. He also was the team leader as a rusher. I'll get into the rushing offense later, but he plays a number of different positions, and he even had a touchdown pass in their bowl game against North Carolina. Main thing for South Carolina here is they just got to push the ball downfield and take advantage of Arkansas' secondary being a little banged up. Starting running back for South Carolina, running back Marshawn Floyd. Lots of talent here, but he's dealt with injuries in the last few seasons. Didn't have that impressive of a start, 11 carries for 39 yards. Backup Juju McDowell, 7 carries for 14 yards. As a team, 32 carries for 79 yards and 2.5 average yards per carry. Very, very lackluster performance against Georgia State, and South Carolina's going to have to open up things here on the ground. Ideally in college football, given the current circumstances and strategies in the game, most teams don't pass more than they run, and it's not that ideal. And we saw that Spencer Rattler giving up 2 interceptions. I do think, running 20, 30 times, they won't do that against Arkansas. They have to push the ball and create a system of a dual option offense. Arkansas's rushing attack, though, has been really good this year, and the secondary kind of was lackluster against Cincinnati.
Now for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Hopping straight into that Hogs defense here, 438 yards allowed for Cincinnati with 325 yards allowed through the air and 113 allowed through the ground. And Ben Bryant really didn't look that good, and that number does shock you. But starting off with the secondary at corner, didn't lose anybody. Dwight McLaughlin, he had 1 interception on a really good read, and Hudson Clark. Those 2 guys are going to be your starters for the majority of the season. Dwight, I feel like, will improve with each game going on. And with Hudson, you kind of know what you're getting, him being a third-year starter. I think a lot of people pick on him easily based off of, the 2020 season and such, and how later in the season he wasn't too good. But he holds his own pretty well, especially in one's coverage. I think he performed really well against Cincinnati. Backups, Ladarius Bishop, Malik Chavis. Didn't really see much of Chavis, and when Bishop got in, it was very noticeable because Cincinnati moved the ball very easily through the air. I wouldn't see much of them. Arkansas will likely use a 5 or 6 man set, bringing out a couple more safeties than anything. The safety health, though, for Arkansas is very concerning. I'll get into that here in a second after I cover the rest of the guys who are going to play. Nickelback, Miles Slusher played safety last year and then also played for Catalan when Catalan was out, and did that in this game too. He has dealing with a head and neck injury right now, so I think the chances he plays are probably low. Redshirt senior Trent Gordon likely getting the start at nickelback. For safety, probably going to see Simeon Belair. Main thing for him, just getting in coverage, and at times he's kind of struggled with what he's been assigned in the area around there. He's good at making tackles. Safety, Latavius Brini, a starter for Georgia. His national championship team last season, picking up on the playbook. And Sam Pittman did say, that he has improved throughout practice. And I forget, somebody on the team said he's much more confident. And the thing is with all this, it's just a next man up mentality. When one guy goes down being an SEC program, you have to be ready for the next player to step up and perform at that level that they need them to get the win. And it's not always going to be perfect given everything. Now, Arkansas safeties, Jalen Catalan, 8 total tackles in 18 minutes, dealing with 2 injuries right now, one of the hand, one of the shoulder. Really not too certain. After the game, he left, came back, and then was in a sling and an ice pack on the sideline. Not really much word from anything else. College injuries are always kind of kept that way. Might hear a little bit more coming closer to game day here. And then safety sophomore Jaden Johnson also injured. So Arkansas down Catalan, Johnson, Slusher, and Isaiah Nichols. Isaiah Nichols probably going to play in this one. It is a big struggle, all 3 of those guys being able to play the safety position. But got to have a next man mentality up with Brini, Blair, and Trent Gordon, the nickelback. The thing is, Arkansas is going to have to pressure Rattler. The offensive line did struggle a little bit for South Carolina and a couple times versus Georgia State. And a guy I see getting a lot of pressure, Drew Sanders, the middle linebacker and edge rusher. 5 total tackles, and 1 sack. He's one of the best in the conference. In my opinion, he would have started for Bama. I mean, Nick Saban said that. I know I say that a lot, but I think that shows how good of a transfer pickup this was for Arkansas. He's athletic, finds ways to get all over the field, make tackles, and clutch up. Bumper Pool, 13 total tackles, 4 solo tackles all over the field. I do expect blitz packages with the 2 linebackers. I think you'll also see some Chris Paul Jr., the third linebacker, subbing in for Poole and Sanders. I was really impressed with the defensive line versus Cincinnati. I think you'll see 4 and 3-man sets again, and it's a really deep team. Starters, Jashad Stewart, Zach Williams got half a sack, Eric Gregory, and then Isaiah Nichols. Nichols did get injured against Cincinnati, but he should be good now per Sam Pittman. And those guys I just listed were all the starters. Now the backups have a lot of talent as well. Jordan Dominic, 1 sack and 1 fumble recovery for about 11 yards. Terry Hampton, 3 total tackles. It's very noticeable what he was getting up front against essentially offensive line that brought a lot of talent back. Landon Jackson, half a sack, 5 total tackles, and then Cam Ball as well. Those 8 guys right there I listed all should and will play for this Arkansas defensive line. And when you have a deep offensive line, you're able to keep guys fresh, keep guys moving. I could see Arkansas running 4-man defensive line sets against Cincinnati, just given the secondary health and so forth. I think we'll see less of the 3-2-6 this season, just based off of how much better this defensive line is. I mean, it got to a point in previous seasons where 3 or 4 defensive line, it really didn't matter. The pressure wasn't changing. But these 8 guys, I think, bring a whole different level to the playing field. Arkansas's defensive line, run stoppage, of course, but they've got to help the secondary out. Arkansas secondary is down a lot right now. I mean, you're down All-American and Jalen Catalon, and then 2 very talented players in Slusher and Jaden Johnson. You got to find ways to adapt and overcome with your other units helping you out. Now, hopping into a little bit of special teams here. Arkansas obviously came little for 4 against Cincy, and then I had a field goal. Max Fletcher, new punter for Arkansas, Aussie-style punter, 38.5 average yards per punt, with 6 punts recorded. AJ Green taking kickoff, Bryce Stevens taking the punt returns. Main thing there, just get it, take a knee, throw your hands in the air. Arkansas does not need to run the ball out. Now, South Carolina, being a Shane Beamer-led team, I really wanted to talk about this a little earlier, but didn't get into it. Arkansas and South Carolina are coached in very same ideas of having like a position coach come in, people doubting them, and then both of them having large numbers of success. South Carolina was a bowl team last season. And the main thing is for both of these programs is they trust their offensive defensive coordinators. And, that mindset is very cool. 2 teams that kind of match that same ideology, playing each other. And something that Beamer stressed, his dad did at Virginia Tech, was special teams. And South Carolina has taken that up. They were huge in the game versus Georgia State. 2 blocked punt return touchdowns. And then they have a new kicker, Jeffrey. He was 2 for 2 with 2 50-plus yard field goals and an extra point. Their punter, Kruger, 7 punts with a 4.9.1 average yards per punt. 4 out of 7 of those were in the 20, and then he had a 79-yard punt as well. For an Arkansas team that has had special teams mishaps the last few years at times during the season, can't have that going against a South Carolina team that's so well coached and performed well against Georgia State in that performance. Some notes here before I get into my prediction. Arkansas and South Carolina both 1-0 against the spread. As of Wednesday, the spread sits at Arkansas -9 and Arkansas money line at 335. The over-under sits at 53.
It's time for Sam's prediction. Sam's prediction.
I got Arkansas winning this game 31-21. Main thing for Arkansas, defensive line, pressure the quarterback given the secondary situation. Rattler is a far better talented quarterback than Ben Bryant. And when Rattler can, show those traits that was one of the reasons why he was considered one of the top picks for the NFL draft at a time. He will be successful. I think Arkansas, if they can just force Rattler out of the pocket, his decision-making goes down and will throw into tighter windows, especially if it's really urgent. Arkansas on offense, though, establish a passing game in a vertical offense. Arkansas taking a couple deep shots as well, I think will help run the score up. Main thing Arkansas did a lot against Cincinnati, though, was control the game from start to finish. There was never really a point that I felt things were too out of hand and the momentum was really shoving towards the other way. Obviously, Dominic got the strip sack fumble, which really helped Arkansas's momentum and so forth. But Arkansas just control the tempo, control the game. Offense, run the ball too. South Carolina really struggled to defend that, and that's their weaker part of their team. Run the ball. I mean, we got Dominique Johnson potentially back this week. A number of different guys. Raheem Sanders, KJ, AJ Green, Rashad. So many guys there. The passing game, Landers, Hazelwood, Knox. I mean, Arkansas is ranked in the top 16 for a reason. This is a very talented football program that Sam Pittman has built here. And, being favored to win your SEC kickoff by 9 on Wednesday, it could be at double digits before. That's something that, you take for granted and shows, another measure of success that Pittman has built here. Now, sorry for the weird programming this week. I just changed it up a little bit due to Labor Day. But Monday, I will have a recap of this South Carolina game, hopefully recapping a win for your Arkansas Razorbacks. But signing off for now, Woo Pig Suey.
That's all for today's episode of All Hog Sports with Sam Stimson. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode covering all Arkansas Razorback sports. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media too. On Twitter and Instagram at All Hog Sports Pod. Like on Facebook at All Hog Sports and Arkansas Razorbacks Podcast. And on YouTube at that same name. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Go Hogs!